starting off, let's start with the texture demo. So this is a pose I had done on stream a while back. Can't remember what the goal is, but let's say I want to have this character, let's give him a black eye, where throughout the shot, maybe like he just got into a fight, or maybe like he, judging by his pose, it's like, oh, I was in a fight, like, oh, not at all. But we want that black eye in there, but we want to transition. We don't want it to just always be there, but we don't want it to not be there at the end. We need to be able to switch it. How to read a reference and pushing the pose. Oh yeah, that's what this one was. Yes, now I remember. Thank you, good memory. So how would we approach that? Let's see, did you see the Noir texture modification I did this weekend for the Apollo rig? I didn't. Give me a link after this and I'll check it out. I would definitely love to see it. And I'm assuming you mean like film noir, because that would be really cool. So, let's say I want to give him that bruise. So the first thing I need to do is I need to actually open the texture and modify it. This is all assuming that your rig has a texture file that adds all the color onto the rig. It is not just a material. So in this case, we would find the texture file on our computer, just browse to where you have it located and open it in something like Photoshop, or you could do it in Fire Alpaca or GIMP or any image editing software. You could do it in Clip Studio. So this is Jules' texture here. It looks very odd when it's all flattened out. And you would just modify it now to add the bruises. So I already did this because this is not a video editing tutorial here today. So I just found some bruise images and I just kind of placed them over the face. So that's pretty good. I didn't worry about being too perfect. So we want these kind of bruises, maybe like a scrape on one side and the start of a black eye underneath. So you would do this and then save it out as a new copy of the texture. So I named this Jules texture bruised. So now we have two textures in our file system. Okay, good. So that's the start. That's what we need as a base. And you could use as many textures as you want. You could have like one texture where there's just a few bruises, another texture where it's all bruised, maybe another texture where he's got a cut on his face, and you can like layer all of these. It's really cool. You can go in depth on this. We're just going to be doing two for now. So we've got that. The next thing we need to do is actually start linking them together. So this is where the magic happens. So we'll go to Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. The Hypershade, for anyone who doesn't know, is the window that basically allows you to handle all of the materials in your scene. So right here, we have the list of materials in our scene. I'm going to find the skin material here, right there. And I'm going to graph it out. So I'll go to the node editor down here, and I'm going to click this button to graph out our texture. So quick recap for anyone who might not know what this is. This is basically everything that goes into creating the texture. We've got the main material here. The material is not the texture, it is just the collection of everything. This is what makes the material feel like plastic or skin or wood or metal. This is the material. Now into that comes in all the actual textures and different other nodes. So right here, this is our actual texture file that is going into the subsurface color. Because this is a skin material, there's a subsurface to it. So this is our texture. Now, if I change this, let's say I did want to have that bruise on his face right away. I could just adjust or update that texture. So let's actually go into our attribute editor here and browse. And where's my bruise? It should be right in here somewhere. Oh wait, no, wrong folder. So let me actually get to the right folder. That'll help. Jules, textures, there we go. So There's our bruise texture. So I could just open this up right now, and now, oh, that doesn't look fun. Now we've got that bruise. It's there, but we've just switched it. We can't animate this. We're just switching one material out for another. So let me actually switch back to this. Okay, so I want just the diffuse right there. So what we need to do instead is we need to create a way of controlling both of them at the same time. So first of all, let's actually make sure we have both in here. This is our normal skin texture. Let's actually rename this here. So I'm going to go into my attribute editor here, and actually no, I can't rename that one. That's fine. So I'm going to bring in our bruise texture. So to do that, I'm just going to go to 2D textures right here and go to file and bring in our new file. So this is a new file node. We can browse and bring in our bruise. There we go. Now we have the normal texture right there. Let's just set this to a plain right there. Yeah. And we've got our actual bruised one here. And this one I can name. So let's call this bruise texture X. Okay. So we've got both of these in place now. How do we link them together? For me, the way I like to do it is I like to use what's called a layer texture. So if you go into the material section here, this is where you can create all the different nodes. Just go to, I believe it's under other textures right here, and you'll have layered texture. So a layered texture kind of works similar to programs like Photoshop. You can bring in multiple files and they layer over top of each other, and you can control their opacity, their connection between each other. By default, it comes in with this green material. We don't like that. So let's bring in our others. So let's middle mouse drag our normal non-bruised face in, and I'll drop it right into the layered texture attributes right here. Now you can see it creates a connection. And then I'm going to middle mouse drag our bruise texture in there as well. And then let's get rid of the green because we don't need it. So I'm just going to click on this X right there to get rid of it. So now this gives us an area where both of these materials are coming in and they are now layering on top of each other. And I can prove this by adjusting their opacity. So that would be the alpha. Now you'll see right now I can't control it. It's being controlled by something else. The attribute is yellow. This means it's connected. This is because when we dragged these files in to the layered texture, it automatically connects their alphas as well, which is nice for some cases. This case, I don't need that. So I'm just going to select those connections and hit delete. That just gets rid of it. Now I have full control over my alpha here. And now you can see if you look in this little preview window, as I change the alpha of one of them, we see that bruise come in right there. This is what allows us to animate our textures, switching and transitioning between each other. It's not just a hard switch. I could set this to like just 25% or just a little bit where the bruise is just starting to come in. We have a lot of control here. So with this, all I need to do now is take the out color of the layer texture and put it into the same color attribute that the original texture was going into. In my case, subsurface color right here. Now, if we look at Jules here, we've got this nice non-bruised face. And as I play with the alpha right here, the bruise comes in. And I could put just a little bit where we just get that hint of like his face is starting to get scraped up. Or we could go all the way and really push it. And I can animate this. I can just right click on the alpha, set key, and now I've got full control over this bruise coming in and out. So you could get hit in the face, and then we can just let that fade in over time instead of just switching. Now, can you layer image sequences? Yes, you can. Basically, you can layer any type of image. So let's say this wasn't a how to put this. This wasn't just a still image, it was an image sequence. All I would have to do is select the texture file right here, and under, where is it? This song is really extreme here. I would just need to turn on the image sequence attributes. So let me see. So bring in a new file. Why is the image sequence checkbox not there? Interesting. Image. Oh wait, that's why. I have to go into the actual attribute editor right there. Use image sequence. So there's two attribute editors. There's the, well, technically it's not an attribute editor. It's called a property editor in the Hypershade. This is specifically properties for textures. The image sequence checkbox is in the attribute editor right here. It shows some of the same attributes. So you'll notice we have pre-filter right there. We have the image name right there. But the attribute editor has a whole bunch more. So if you're not seeing it in the property editor, check the attribute editor. And yes, you can definitely mix and match. It's really cool when you start doing that. So that's pretty much it. Now, the magic of the layer texture or layered texture is that we can keep pushing it in a lot of interesting ways and make things that are just a little bit more visually interesting, or that we have more control on. So let's say, for example, that we wanted this bruise to come in, but maybe we didn't want that bruise, how to say this, maybe we didn't want the bruise to be fully like just color. We want a little bit of extra texture in there, I guess you could say. Well, let's do that. I'm going to take my main color here, and I'm going to drag it once again into the layer texture. Now, this is one thing I'm not a fan of in the layer texture, is that these are hard to see what they are, like which one's which. I have no idea. You kind of have to just move your mouse cursor over it and it'll tell you the name. So there's our bruise texture right there. And then the ones on either side are the normal texture. And it goes from left to right. So left is the top layer, and then it goes right to the bottom right there. So the reason I did this is I'm going to keep the alpha of the first one here down. This way we can see the bruise. And then on the bruise texture, on the alpha node right here, I'm going to add in a 3D texture. So a 3D texture is a texture that doesn't need UVs. It kind of creates a projection onto the surface. This is great for general editing of certain things. You do have to be careful of certain things about it, but I like these for kind of adding a little variation to surfaces because you don't have to worry about how the UVs line up. So let's add, we could play around with either a solid fractal or volume noise. Let's play with solid fractal a little bit. So I connected a solid fractal into the alpha of the bruise texture. What that does is now you'll notice that the bruise is not just a pure color anymore. So I can, in a sense, do image editing within Maya to adjust the two textures that I had. Instead of just, oh wait, I have to go into Photoshop. I want it a little bit more splotchy. Okay, go in here, save, re-import, do all of that. I don't have to do that. I want it a little bit splotchier. Well, I add this, and now I can play around with my solid fractal. So let's go in here. So I could play around with the threshold, and you can see how that really changes that texture. Maybe adds a little bit more splotchiness in there. Play around with the ratio. You can see how that softens it, or we can get much harder. This is one of those things where it's a lot of exploring. Play around with these kind of things. I really love doing this kind of stuff because you can really have some interesting results from these. So now, like, we've got this kind of scratched look right from within Maya itself. So something like that. Let's actually adjust our ratio a little bit, make it a little softer. Maybe not that soft. So something like this. So now I can just add these little scratches onto the bruise itself if I wanted to. Yay. And the reason we had the duplicate main layer right here, so you can see we have 3, is if we didn't have that, what would end up happening is as we play around with the opacity, the character's texture might start looking a little weird. So you'll notice that now he's got scratches all over his face. Kind of gives him a wooden effect. We want to have that underlayer right there to help keep that base color. And then the top one acts as the kind of on-off switch. So I still have that ability to take that bruise and have it go away. There we go. So is the stream recorded? Yes. All of the streams are recorded and they stay up for 30 days. And by the end of the 30 days, I highlight the streams, which means that they stay up forever. So not all the streams are up because I didn't realize you could highlight things until way too late. But nowadays, most of the streams should stay up forever unless I forget to highlight something. And the highlighted versions are usually trimmed down because I can edit it. So if, for example, in this demo, in this stream, I'm doing 2 demos, I'll cut it into 2 separate streams. So that way you look at the recording and you don't have to try and find whatever you were looking at. So we have full control there, but we can go one step further. What if I only want one bruise to come in and then he gets hit in the face another time and then the second bruise comes in? Well, like we were saying at the beginning, I could make 2 textures. I could make one texture with one bruise, another texture with both bruises, and then I just play with their opacity to bring them in when I need. That's one way to do it. But in this case, I've already got the texture here, and luckily, there's enough of a separation between them that we could split it. So for example, I could split this right down the middle of the face and have one texture and then another. Okay. How would we do that in Maya without having to go into image editing and all sorts of stuff and again make multiple texture files and link them all and all of that? Well, the layered texture once again will come in handy. So let's take our layered texture here, and I'm just going to kind of nudge it out of the way, make some room. So we're going to be adding a whole bunch of stuff here, and my computer's running a little slow, so there we go. This is one thing with the I've got an extra file node here just sitting there for no reason. Why are you here? Oop, get rid of you. Okay. So the node editor can run a little slowly. If you're noticing that, just turn off the lights and stuff in your viewport. It'll help speed things up. So what I'm going to do is I need to be able to control the alpha on this on-off switch. So this right here, this is our on-off switch, whether the bruise is on or off. This alpha right there. I need to be able to get more control over that. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm first going to create a couple of ramp nodes. So let's do that first. So I'm going to go to 2D textures and I'm going to create a ramp. A ramp is the same as a gradient. That's really what it is. So we've got ramp 1, ramp 2. Now let's name these. Always name your nodes or else you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble if you go for a really complex thing. So this is going to be bruise. Let's go left. And then this is going to be bruise right. Okay. So let's work with just one of them for now and see what this does. So I'm going to take my layered texture and I'm going to take the bruise left and connect it into the alpha of this first node right there. Now, there's no real easy way to just like drag and drop here. Like I could try, actually, did they change this? Ooh, they did. You couldn't do this in older versions of Maya. So if I middle mouse drag on out alpha here and drag onto the alpha there, haha, it connects it. Ooh, I'm so happy. I just learned something new. Now, the problem with this is bruise left doesn't actually have an alpha channel per se. An alpha channel is a black and white channel that is basically on or off. It's a 0 to 1 value, as we were seeing right here when I was editing it. Now, if your ramp doesn't have an alpha, well, how do you connect it? Well, color is also a value of 0 to 1. Now, typically what happens is you have 3 color channels, RGB, they all mix together and they make a color. But when you're dealing with a black and white image, all of them have the same value. It's gray, black, white, and gray, which is a value of 0 to 1 in Maya. Which means that I can take any of these colors out, color R, G, or B, and connect those into my alpha. So let's do this. So out color red, drag that into the alpha, and that'll work just as well. As long as I keep this in black and white, there's no issue. It does the same thing. So just keep that in mind when you're connecting things. And actually, it looks like it took my alpha instead of my out color. Let me see if I can... Oh, dang it. Yeah, that's why it didn't work. So it wants to connect the alpha to the alpha. So let's do this the manual way then. Because I thought I learned something new. So all I need to do is open up the inputs right here. Input 1, that's the first layer right there. We can double check this just by looking at our color nodes right here. So that's going into input 1. And there's our alpha. Let's connect out color R into alpha right there. Perfect. So let's see what this does. So I'm going to minimize the hypershade once it catches up. There we go. So now with our ramp, if I adjust the ramp here, we can now see that this controls the texture. And we can actually, if we wanted to, bring this a little closer. And you can see how I'm starting to fade it from the top. So it's getting further away from the eyes, and we're just seeing that bottom edge. It's going in the wrong direction. It's going up and down versus left and right. Well, this is where the direction comes in. So right now it's in a V ramp, which means it's up and down. Just like in world space, you have X, Y, and Z. X is left and right, Y is up and down, Z is depth in Maya. You have U and V directions for textures. U is left and right in texture space, V is up and down in texture space. So if I want this to cut left and right, so we just see one side versus the other, I need to set this to a U ramp, left and right. And now, if I adjust this, and it should be right in the center somewhere. right around here, almost there. I can now hide one side or the other. I've gotten rid of one bruise, I've kept the other one. That's pretty much it. So this is bruise left, good. That's the one I want to keep. So let's do the same with bruise right. Now I actually don't have to look at what I'm doing here right away. I'm just going to set it to a U ramp, but then make sure that the black and white is inversed, like this. And that should be close enough for now. Now the problem is we have both of these switches in place. Great. Useful? Not really, because they're separate. Well, this is where our little secret weapon comes in, a layered texture. I'm going to take a layered texture and I'm going to drag in both of these bruises. So this is going to take both of those left and right masks and combine them. Now the way we combine them, this is where, and you can animate the ramp points. You can technically, I'm not a fan of it just because it's very hard to control. I would much rather control the alpha, but you can animate this if you wanted like someone to wipe something across their face. Maybe they're doing like the action movie where they're gonna put the like lines under their face, or they do that thing where they put the black lines, or usually it's like blood or something smeared across their face. You could do that, and you can actually animate it so the texture animates across the face. That's very tricky, but it is possible. In this case, all I want to do is be able to control both sides. And does it work if you import a PSD? Yes. All of this would work with a PSD or without. So yeah, no problem there. So now we've got our layered texture, but we've got a problem in that I could animate technically the alpha of one or both, but they're layered. So if I just turn the top one on, that just means that we see the one side and that's it. If I want to see both sides, how do I do that? And if I want to like animate in a specific way, I'm gonna have trouble with this. So this is where a little bit of kind of Photoshop knowledge comes in. Right now the problem is that we've got a black and white image over a black and white image, and we want to be able to control both of them. Basically control the black on one side, black on the other, because again, the black is what makes it visible. So how do we do this? Well, we just need to play around with their attributes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new color here. I'm just going to click right there. This creates this default green color. I'm going to turn this into white. There you go. A base white color. This means that if I turn both of these off in their alphas, we get this pure white color. Now I don't know why it's not updating there into white, but let's actually look here. Actually, before we do that, let's actually tie this in. So we're going to take the out color here, just like we did before, out color R, and put that into our alpha to connect things up here so we can actually test it. So this is going to connect. It's going to take a little bit here, as the more layers you go, it kind of slows things down as soon as you connect them because it has to do all the math, but then it should run fine afterwards. So we've got this white texture. This is no bruises. Now if I want to bruise on the right side, I can just take my alpha here and bring that up. Now it looks like my ramp isn't quite in the right spot, so I'm gonna just adjust that ever so slightly here. There we go. I actually got it pretty close. I'm surprised. Okay, so let's go back to our layered texture. Okay, so we can take in, and that did not select our layered. There we go. So I could turn on the right bruise by playing with the alpha here. I can turn on the left bruise by playing with the alpha there. So, we've got that. But let's say I want to turn on both of them at the same time. Turn that on. Good. Turn the other one on, and it hides the other bruise. Because these ramps are black and white, which means black is the bruise turned on, white is turned off. And when we play with our transparency, well, it's turning one side off. No, this is not what we want. So what we need to do is tweak it so that the white is invisible. And if you've ever used Photoshop and played with the filters in Photoshop, you've probably played with some of these. So if you go to the blend mode, right now it's set to over, which means it's over top. There's a whole bunch of these here. Now, two that are really good are multiply, and I believe, I always use multiply. I believe it's multiply and then difference or something like that. So what multiply does, multiply makes it so that any black value multiplies the color underneath it. So black is visible, and any white color is transparent. So if I set both of these to multiply, basically what that's going to do is make it so that our ramp now goes from black to transparent instead of from black to white. So let's do this here. So Maya's being a little slow here. It also doesn't help that I have two versions of Maya open for the next demo. So go back to multiply here, and you can see how that changes our texture right up there. So what this means is now I have full control over this. I can now adjust one bruise, and it's going to be a little slow. There we go. Maybe that's going to be like 50%, not quite coming in yet. The other one, right here, once it loads up, I should actually check my processor just to see. Yeah, definitely Maya is pulling a lot of info right now. Okay, so the other one, we can adjust that. There we go. I have full control over both bruises. I can turn one off, one on, have them fade at different times, coming in at different speeds. Done. All within Maya. So with this, it doesn't just have to be a bruise. It could be, in the example that this demo was kind of asked about, someone wanted to have a character eat a hot pepper and then have their face get really red. Not just the whole texture, because their hands shouldn't really get red, or the base of their neck or anything. Just kind of the face area. It just kind of gets redder and redder and redder as he gets kind of more affected by the pepper. Well, you could do that. You could basically add a normal texture, make a kind of red-faced texture, and then do a layered approach and just bring it in and just play with the alpha. If you wanted to have it kind of come up the face a little bit more, you could add a ramp. There's all sorts of different ways you could do that, and it really all comes down to the layered texture in Maya. Now, again, there are other ways of doing this, but this is my preferred way because it's simple, and you can really kind of build it together into something much more complex and very animatable, which is a lot of fun. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that was interesting, and hopefully kind of gives you some tips and tricks to play with on this. Now let me get to the chat here because I did see some questions. So NS Films, alpha remember trick, white is window, black is block. That's actually a good trick. The only problem with that, just for anyone dealing with multiple programs, is be aware that some programs have it inversed. One of the biggest ones is ZBrush. If you're using ZBrush in Maya, they use different black-white values. So in Maya, let's say black is visible, white is invisible. ZBrush would be the other way. And actually, I believe it's the inverse. In Maya, black is 0, white is 1. in ZBrush, black is 1, white is 0. So it's very confusing. And then also the U and V directions are not the same too. So if you try to bring your textures over, you can actually flip them by accident and it just creates a whole mess. So it's just something to be careful about. It's the same with Maya to Blender. If you're working with both of these, or ZBrush to Blender, be aware that ZBrush by default is a Z up world. So the Z axis is actually the up and down, not the Y axis. In most other programs, it's the Y axis that's up and down. So just be something to be careful of when you're going from one program to the next, and it can be very annoying sometimes.